They call him the Top Hat Man. Tall, silent, a shadow that doesn't belong to any living person. You'll hear his name whispered in old houses, in towns where the streets empty too early, and in the stories families only tell when the lights are low. Always the same image, a figure in a long black coat, a hat too formal for our time, standing just beyond the edge of light. No face, no features, only darkness where a face should be. And yet, he acts. Unlike the fleeting shadows most people glimpse in the corner of their eye, the Top Hat Man does things. He steps in. He interferes. Sometimes he protects. Sometimes he punishes. Always, he leaves a memory you can't shake. Over the years, I've received letters and emails describing encounters with him. Different towns, different decades, but when you line up the stories, the patterns are unmistakable. One of the earliest came from a woman remembering her childhood. Her father was a drinker, quick to anger when he stumbled home late. She told me that she was a little girl. She'd curl up in bed at night, praying her father would pass her door by. But one night, she swore, he couldn't get in. The knob rattled, the door shook, but it wouldn't open. Her father yelled, cursed, pounded, and inside the room, in the corner by her dresser, stood a tall man in a coat and a top hat. He didn't speak. He only held one long finger to his lips, a gesture to say, "Be quiet, stay still." The father eventually gave up, and the girl was left untouched that night. She said she never forgot the way the man's hat brushed the ceiling. Another report came decades later. A family in a quiet neighborhood, broken into after midnight, they woke to the sound of glass shattering, heavy footsteps, voices moving through the kitchen. Panic. The parents gathered their kids into the bedroom, braced the door. They heard the men trying to force their way in, a crowbar on the frame, the knob turning and rattling, and then silence. The intruders left as suddenly as they came. The family waited, their hearts pounding before opening the door. Nothing was broken. The lock wasn't jammed. The door should have opened easily, yet it didn't. The mother swore that in the hall she saw him, a tall shadow with a hat, standing with his back to the bedroom door, like a guard on post. When she blinked, he was gone. And not all stories end with protection. One came from a family with a violent father. The man was cruel, lashing out at his wife and children. One night, after a shouting match, he was found at the bottom of the stairs, scratches down his arm and back, a bruise blooming on his chest. He told the neighbors that he had been pushed. His family swore no one had touched him. The children said they had seen a figure at the top of the stairs, tall, hat tilted low, watching as their father fell. So, what is the Top Hat Man? A ghost? A demon? Something else? The truth is, the stories don't agree, but we can start with what we know. He looks human. He dresses human. The hat, the coat, the stature, but his behavior, that's harder to place. Most human spirits are echoes, memories that loop endlessly, replaying the last days of a life. They walk familiar halls, touch objects that mattered, and fade again. But the Top Hat Man doesn't loop. He decides. He chooses. He acts with intent. That suggests something more than a human ghost. Some believe he was once a man, maybe a caretaker, a landlord, someone tied to authority. The hat, after all, isn't random. A top hat was a symbol of power, of status. If a man like that lived and died in one of these houses, Maybe his role carried on, not just his memory, but his duty. In that case, the Top Hat Man would be a guardian, harsh perhaps, selective in what he steps in, but a remnant of a man who believed order must be kept long after his own life ended. But others argue he was never human. Not all inhuman spirits are evil. Some are caretakers, some are enforcers. Think of the old folklore, guardians at thresholds, watchers at boundaries, spirits that protect families or punish those who cross certain lines. The Top Hat Man fits that mold. He appears in corners and doorways, liminal spaces. He doesn't sit in the middle of a room. He waits at the edges where one state meets another. Light and shadow, safety and danger, inside and out. His form, the hat, the coat, may not be who he is after all. It may be a mask, a form borrowed because it makes sense to us, because we respect it, because when we see that silhouette, we recognize authority, we obey. Is he good? The stories of children saved, of families spared from intruders, certainly points that way. But then, there are violent stories, the scratches, the shove down the stairs. Here's the unsettling part. Both could be true. If he's a guardian, his job isn't to be kind. His job is to keep order, to protect the innocent, and to punish those who break the rules. From the outside, that looks like a spirit that chooses sides. And that, more than anything, is what unsettles people. Most ghosts wander aimlessly, harmless. The Top Hat Man? He takes action. He makes choices. Some reports mention another detail, a pocket watch, old, brass, ticking when it shouldn't, sometimes with no hands at all. Witnesses say clocks in the house stop when he appears. It suggests something stranger still, that he isn't bound by time like we are, that he operates on another rhythm, slipping in and out of moments as he pleases. Maybe the watch is a token, maybe it's a tool, maybe it's a reminder that when he steps in, he isn't just haunting space, he's haunting time. Where did he come from? That's the mystery. Some say he is born of trauma, that when a house holds too much pain, too much violence, too many secrets, the walls themselves create a guardian, a shape stitched out of the shadows and fear, given purpose to balance the scale. Others say he is ancient, not tied to one family or one town, but to the very concept of memory, a collector, a keeper of might-have-beens, protecting some, punishing others, making sure echoes of lives don't cross where they don't belong. And there are those who say he is a trickster, something that wears the mask of protectors only to make people let their guard down, a deceiver, a punisher, a spirit whose morality doesn't match our own. The truth we're left with. Whatever his origin, one thing is clear. The Top Hat Man endures. Decades apart, miles apart, families describe the same figure, the same hat, the same coat, the same silence. He doesn't haunt with rattling chains or fiery eyes. He doesn't scream or chase. He waits. He watches. He chooses when to step forward, when to intervene. If you were a child and needed protection, you'd remember him as the shadow that stood between you and harm. If you were the source of the pain in the home, you'd remember him very differently, as the shadow that finally struck back. So, is he human? Inhuman? Protector? Punisher? The answer is probably yes to all. The Top Hat Man is not a story about death. He's a story about judgment, about the things houses remember, the echoes they hold, and the strange guardians that rise from those echoes. And maybe that's why he unsettles us so much. Most spirits simply are, but the top hat man decides. And if he ever tips his hat from the corner of your room, if he ever lifts one finger to his lips, you might want to listen.